Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, and I am live today. I know there's a couple times it looked like I was alive. I was alive. Yes, I am still alive. That I was live, but I really taped it a few days before. But today I'm live, and it's October the 8th, and it's great to be here with you on today's episode of I Am Patient. And they're all special to me, but this one is extra special because this wonderful woman you're about to meet has not only had an incredible journey and battle with cystic fibrosis, but she works with me. So I am lucky enough to call her a team member. She's an editor extraordinaire at Snow Companies. And we're just so honored that she's part of our family. So you are going to get to meet Rachel Sutherland today. Grew up in Tennessee, but considers herself a Newfoundland girl, having been born there. You can't take that out of her. She has a master's degree in publishing and writing, and she helps, for all those of you watching, patients and all of our clients, make sure that what leaves the building definitely has the Oxford comma, right? So please, everybody, welcome Rachel today to hear about her valiant fight with cystic fibrosis. So how you doing, hon?
Hi, guys. My name is Rachel, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you and with Brenda most especially. And I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good. Well, so listen, a lot of people may not know that cystic fibrosis is a genetic condition. And you have had it since you were obviously born. So tell me a little bit of the backstory about like how your parents, knew that, some of your early struggles, what it's like to have cystic fibrosis. Maybe explain that so we really understand. And then we're going to go into about some of the life-changing therapies that you've recently gotten to take, and sort of how COVID has impacted you, which has been really, really hard. So tell me a little bit about your journey, your early on journey.
Okay, that's great. I'd love to start at the very beginning. Most people with cystic fibrosis are born with what's called a meconium ileus, which is a type of bowel obstruction. And it means the first bit of meconium, which is fecal matter in babies, does not pass through because it is significantly thicker in us than it is in a normal person. And so it can lead to bowel obstructions, which obviously are very dangerous. So the day I was born, I actually was rushed to an emergency children's hospital in Newfoundland, Canada, and they had to do a bowel resection. And at that time, they also discovered that I had a very small hole in my heart. So the first few months were a little bit iffy for me, but I fully recovered from all of that. And because I did have the meconium ileus, the doctors were pretty much sure that I had cystic fibrosis at birth. Like, they gave a preliminary diagnosis, and then later we got the genetic screening panel, which confirmed the diagnosis. And for those of you who are not aware, I'm just going to go into a small overview of what cystic fibrosis is.
Sure.
So as Brenda explained, it is a genetic condition. It is recessive, so that means you have to get one gene from each parent. And it causes a malfunction in the CFTR chloride ion transfer channel, which means that salt and water do not properly go across the cell membrane. There's a malfunction in that mechanism. And due to that, you have very thick secretions everywhere in your body. So everything like mucus is thicker, saliva is thicker, digestive mucus is thicker. So because of that, you have very thick mucus in your lungs all the time, and that leads to repeated infections. And eventually, because of the repeated infections, you get scarring in your lungs, which leads to decreased lung function and is ultimately fatal. And it also affects your digestion because the thicker mucus also blocks the natural pancreatic enzymes that we all make naturally to digest food. It prevents that from leaving the pancreas. So everyone with cystic fibrosis is forced to take supplemental pancreatic enzymes whenever they eat so we can digest food. And later in life, a percentage of us also become diabetic because our pancreas becomes scarred through that same process, and it no longer functions properly. So it has very complex, after effects, but at its core, cystic fibrosis affects the lungs primarily, so that you cough pretty much every single day of your life, very hard hacking coughs, And so it's not a silent disease. Like, people know that something is wrong with you because you can't really hide it.
Yeah.
And, there's lots of hospitalizations and meds. Like, I used to be on 40 plus meds a day.
Rachel.
And, at the end of cystic fibrosis, in the later stages, people can opt to get a lung transplant, which will increase your longevity somewhat. But at the end of the day, it's not really a cure. You still have cystic fibrosis. And even though your lungs no longer have that problem with retaining like really thick mucus, so you can no longer breathe properly, you still have the digestive issues. And now that you've had a lung transplant, you face rejection and are immunocompromised due to the anti-rejection meds as well. So it's a very complex illness. And it actually used to be considered a childhood disease because people did not live into adulthood or longer. No one was elderly, essentially. But thanks to, the wonders of modern medicine, our lifespans are increasing every day. I'm 29 years old, so I've already beat the odds, essentially. And yeah, it's just amazing the things that the doctors and scientists continue to do for us every day.
Yeah, that is an incredible comprehensive overview. And I think, that's the whole point of why we do this program, to bring awareness to things. You're exactly right. I have a very dear friend, grew up with her, and she has four kids, and two of her boys have cystic fibrosis. And I just think they're older now, but just some of the misinformation and people not understanding why, like during cold and flu season, they have to be so careful. So, COVID has just magnified this whole thing, for everybody out there. Rachel and I were talking before we pushed the live button, and, we've shared throughout how hard it's been for all of us. We've had, therapists on this program. We've had experts talking about the impact of COVID, but, I've been able to do some things. Rachel has been in her house for 6 months, everybody. She drove her car to see her parents once and like barely stopped, drove from Virginia to Tennessee. So what is this emotional toll? I mean, it's already hard enough to have this condition, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
What has this added burden done to you? How are you staying positive? I think you're remarkable.
Thank you. It has been very difficult. I have lived alone for quite a while, but I wasn't alone. I would go to work, I would see my friends. I actually would travel and see my family quite often. Every time we had a long weekend or a holiday, I would be home with everyone, right? I find it very difficult now to just be by myself all day, every day. Thankfully, FaceTime exists, so I do get to see everyone that I miss, but I am also an introverted extrovert. Like, I enjoy my alone time, but I also get energy from other people. So I have found that very hard to deal with, just the isolation. But at the end of the day, I have to stay safe and be home and just wait it out because, healthy people are passing away from this illness. And my lungs are such that they're already severely scarred and compromised. So it's a very high likelihood that I would pass away as well if I were to catch this disease.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen. I told you, you have a beautiful window there. So I'll make sure we get some people from Snow to come stand outside there and visit you soon. Yeah, we're going to make a field trip here next week. You can count on that. So the 40 medications a day, that is intense. I mean, you could have spent all day, every day, just taking meds.
Yes.
How did that transition? Now, I know that you are double delta F508 typed, correct? Tell everybody what that means. That's your genetic mutation.
It is. That's the mutation that I have. People with cystic fibrosis have different genetic mutations, which cause malfunctions in the CFTR chloride ion transfer process. It breaks down at different spots. So depending on what mutation you have, the newer types of drugs, which are based on your genotype, some will not work for you, right? Like, because I have this specific one, I am on a drug currently that does work for me, but other people with one of the more rare genotypes cannot take it because it's ineffective. So that's one of the things that's really complex about cystic fibrosis, even though they discovered the gene years ago, because we all have different genotypes of that gene where the problem is kind of different, where it breaks down in that process. It makes it hard to have like a one-size-fits-all treatment plan so much.
Yeah.
And, moving into the future for the children that are able to get this new medication currently, they will not have as many problems in the future, and their lifespan will be increased because they will not get the repeated infections and the scarring that most CF adults have now, because we've lived so long without this particular type of medication that kind of staves off most of the infections, I will say. So it's ever increasing for those people that are younger and can start on the medication sooner, but for people who are my age and we already have the scarring, it's only able to do so much to improve because you already have scarring and you can't really reverse scarring. And, you know, each person with CF is different. The types of drugs they have to do are different. Their routines are different. And, you know, CF is not a monolith. Obviously, there's different paths in like everywhere in CF, but overall the journey is very similar for most people just because of the way the disease progresses.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel like, because it's something you've always had and you've grown up with it, that it's just part of you and normal? Or do you find that, you know, there's days that are tough and that you say, why me? How do you handle like the emotional roller coaster?
I mean, it's a bit of both. When I was younger, it didn't bother me as much because I was healthier, right? Like I didn't have as much scarring. It was just, you know, in the hospital a couple times a year, you take some meds, you do some treatments, it's fine, you live your life. But as I've gotten older and I have gotten worse, particularly in college, when I did have my small rebellious phase and I tried to be normal and I wasn't really as being diligent with my treatments and everything, and therefore I got worse quicker than I otherwise would have. I did go through those periods of like, why me? And, you know, why do I have to deal with this when all my friends are healthy and they can just go to the movies whenever they want to? But at the same time, it is my life. And so it doesn't really seem that strange to me because I have lived like this the entirety of my life. I don't really know what I would do per se if I was healthy, right? I don't know if that would have changed my personality and things like that. So yeah, you kind of just take the good with the bad.
Yeah. I know that there was a time in your life where I think it was a doctor or a therapist, I'm not sure. Yeah, take a sip of water. Told you like, don't try to go to school or get a job or, you know, just take disability and be lucky you're going to stay
Yeah.
alive for a little while, right? Can you tell us
Yeah,
about that story?
it's more than one person actually. It's kind of a prevailing sentiment, at least you know when I was younger in the CF community for the caregivers, the doctors, the social workers, those people, that because it's not a very long-lived disease, you know, typically people don't live into their 50s and 60s and stuff, that there's no point in going to college or like working your butt off to have a career or you know saving for retirement or any of these things because you weren't going to live long enough really. I was told in high school by a doctor that did not have great bedside manner, if I'm being frank, that if I didn't take better care of myself, I wasn't going to live long enough to graduate from high school. And I was 16 and I was healthy too. Like I wasn't even that sick at the time in
Yeah.
comparison to what I am now. So I found that very shocking for him to say, but it's still a prevailing feeling for people in the cystic fibrosis community that you should just be on disability and, you know, live your life, but they don't really think that you should strive for much. And I won't say that that's everyone. My parents certainly didn't feel that way. They always were like, well, if you're only going to be here for a short time, you're going to live your life and you're going to have lived it, right?
Hmm.
So they always pushed me to follow my dreams and go to school and get a job and live like anyone else would live. But I don't know if that's the norm per se.
Yeah.
And now with the advancements in technology and the new medications, there's a bit of a culture shock in the CF community, particularly in my age group, which is, you know, late 20s, early 30s, that all of these people that didn't pursue a career, didn't go to school, didn't, you know, try to get a job that they really loved, are now kind of having these existential crises because they now have potentially years more in their life than they were expecting, and they don't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah. And then that presents a whole other, you know, set of emotions and what do I do and how am I going to go? Well, I just couldn't
Right.
be more pleased to have you be on the team and be realizing, you know, your dreams and your goals and your ambitions and to be employed. And for all of you out there wondering, some of our snow team members do go back to the building every day here in Virginia. But Rachel is going to be staying at home until all this nonsense It could be a long time that you're at home
Yeah,
until
I
all
know.
this
Thank you.
gets
I
solved.
miss all of my work friends. Hey guys, I hope you're watching.
We're gonna come stand outside your house next
Okay.
week. We're gonna put it on rotation. And all of the snow friends that are watching, get it on your calendars, get it organized. So I remember when we hired you, you were having a hard time with nutrition, right?
Yes.
And gaining weight and staying healthy. That has changed dramatically with your
It
new
has.
medications, right? Can you tell
Yes.
me about that?
Yeah, so throughout my life, I have been chronically malnourished, underweight, and when I was little, I actually wasn't even on the growth chart. They would make a dot like below the growth chart. So I was always very thin, very like sickly thin, and that was my norm, and I was used to it. And it was always a constant battle to try to put weight on me, and you'd have to eat when you're not hungry, and it's not pleasant. People would think, oh, you can eat whatever you want because you're on a high calorie diet, but it's a pain. It's hard to force yourself to eat when you have no appetite, and when you cannot breathe, you have no appetite. You don't want to eat anything because then there's more substances, in your stomach, making your stomach bigger, pressing on your already overtaxed lungs, right? So a lot of us don't have great appetites to begin with. When you're sick, obviously, you also don't want to eat. And due to the nature of cystic fibrosis, where our pancreases don't work, and we also have a lot of bowel issues, again, like I had a bowel resection the day I was born, we don't really gain weight like normal people, especially because we have to take the supplemental enzymes to gain weight. So it's always a constant battle. Like if you go on any CF website, it's like high calorie recipes and tips and tricks on how to gain weight and things like that. So when I started at Snow, I weighed, I think, 87 pounds, which I'm 5'6". That's not great. And a couple years ago when I was in grad school, actually, I was becoming sick enough that they recommended that I have a gastroscopy tube put in so I could have overnight enteral nutrition feeds. And I got that put in, and it's kept me alive, but I didn't really gain much weight. It just helped me like stop losing weight, essentially. So I would do that nightly. That makes you not really want to eat when you wake up because you're already full. So it's kind of a hard catch-22.
Yeah.
Right. But then in December of this year, I started on a new CFTR modulator drug, which had just been approved. It had actually got expedited approval by the FDA because they thought it had such great results. And since then, I have gained 37 pounds. Nothing fits me. It's a good problem to have. I feel amazing. But yeah, it's very shocking because, people who saw me when I first started at Snow to now, they probably won't really recognize me when I come back to the office because I no longer look like the stick figure that used to work there.
Oh, that's such good news, though. I mean, that's amazing. And, I think it's why we all do what we do to, see medical advances in treatment and especially in chronic and rare conditions. I mean, that is really wonderful. Your parents must feel, since you have to be far away, this must make them feel really good and have a
they were really excited for me. I did get to see them a couple of weeks ago. I traveled home for my birthday, and my mom, she always gives me a hug, and she does this thing which she thinks that I don't know about, but she always like rubs my shoulders to see how skinny I am, right? And this time she was like, I can't feel your ribs. So she was so excited, and that was one of the best birthday presents ever, just to know that they were excited for me and they don't have to worry about me as much now because I'm doing much better, right? Whereas before, I think it was very clear that I wasn't doing the best,
Yeah. So everybody, I know we're live today. So if you have any questions about cystic fibrosis, if you have any questions specifically for Rachel or anything else that's on your mind, go ahead and type them in there. And I have this lovely person right over here to my right that will write them down for me. And I will get them asked to Rachel. Rachel, you do have a few shout outs from Caitlin and Tara. We love you, Rachel. Thank you for doing this. So yes, a lot of people are rooting for you. Talk about some of the unmet needs in the cystic fibrosis community. Even prior to knowing you, I've worked in cystic fibrosis back some 10 odd years ago and know you now. And again, have a friend that has 2 sons with CF, but, and it's made great strides. But what are still some of the unmet needs? What are things that we should highlight today on this show that we can maybe try to start to solve with conversations, dialogue, fundraising? What's your opinion?
Right. Well, first and foremost, I think we need to elevate just the societal awareness of cystic fibrosis and what it is, because even though some people know what it is, you may have read about it as a one-liner in your biology textbook when you're in high school. It's like, oh, this genetic condition, people die from it. You never hear about it again. Or if you do hear about it, it's like, oh, so-and-so has died, they had cystic fibrosis. It's not like, oh, I know a lot of people with CF, because it is still quite rare. I mean, it's not the rarest of diseases, but it's not common. So just raising the awareness of it in general in the cultural discourse, so we can get increased awareness for funding opportunities and research opportunities that will directly lend itself to continued research and development, and will save lives and increase the longevity of the cystic fibrosis population as a whole. And then I think just on like an emotional level, having a little bit more positivity around it, I think. You know, yes, it is a terminal disease. People still die every day. It's hard. But at the same time, I think with these advances, you know, particularly in the caregiver space and the provider space, we need to have a little bit more optimism and push people towards having lives and, you know, striving for more instead of just, you're here for a short time, not a long time. Why bother? Right? So I think that's one of the main things. It's being positive and moving forward together instead of having this isolationist thing where it's like, oh, I have to be by myself. I have to take care of myself. I can't reach out because, again, this might not be well known, but because of the repeated infections that most people with cystic fibrosis have and the very specific deadly infections and bugs that we have in our lungs most of the time, we are not allowed to really interact with one another. Against medical advice, people do it, but we're very alone. Like, we can have friends with CF, but we're not going to have a CF slumber party, right? Correct. So I think just really trying to get people out there and aware of it so it's not as isolating is one of the bigger points.
Yeah, you make a good point that I think people don't realize. I remember one of the first programs I ever did in cystic fibrosis. You know, there's nothing more powerful than bringing a group of people together like you. I mean, I remember some 26 years ago when I, you know, got to look and touch and somebody else that had MS, like right there.
Right, yeah.
You're right. With cystic fibrosis, you know, you might be able to, on good days and stuff, yeah, see your friends, but they're your friends without CF.
Right.
It's a very high risk. And I remember we had to, I don't know all the particulars, but that was virtual. We were doing virtual before
Yeah.
Zoom, before there's virtual now. But that is hard because I imagine some of that, you know, sameness, that camaraderie, that feeling like there's somebody just like me, but you can't be with them can be very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is difficult. I mean, but it does keep us safe, which is a good thing. And now, thankfully, you know, as you were saying, Zoom and FaceTime exist, so we can have little get-togethers virtually and things like that. But I just think putting as much attention and research and development as we can on this very specific disease is going to increase longevity for everyone. And everyone wants to live longer, obviously. So it's really great.
Yeah, everyone wants to live. This might be a little bit of a tough question, but how do you not let like the fear of dying come to you? You know, how do you try to keep that at bay?
It used to worry me a lot more, I think, when I was younger, and particularly when I was sicker. You know, I used to always kind of feel like there was this, you know, dagger on a string hanging above my head, like, when is it going to fall, kind of thing. But I just think as I've gotten older and I've kind of accepted, you know, you could die in a car crash tomorrow. Nobody really knows how long they have. So you kind of just have to live for today and enjoy today. And so I also have a great support system. My family is amazing. They're always so, you know, willing to share the burden with me and keep things upbeat. And we might have a little bit of a dark sense of humor just because you have to in this kind of situation. But yeah, I just kind of try to take it one day at a time.
That's great. I think that's great advice for everybody. It's so true, no matter kind of what we're living with, whether it's CF or cancer or mental health issues. It's such great advice, Rachel. You're a smart cookie. What's next for you? What are some of your hopes and dreams and ambitions?
Well, first I need to get through COVID, just like everybody else. Get out of the house again. That would be nice. I would love to travel more. I mean, traveling for me is very hard just because I sleep with BiPAP and oxygen and the G tube, and all the meds. And I do have CF diabetes. I was diagnosed with CF related diabetes 2 years ago. And so I have to have insulin and stuff now. So I can't just throw a bag in the car and go, right? But I love to travel. I love road tripping. So I would love to be able to do that more. Maybe once, I've improved even more from the new medication, that I can cut down on some of my other medications and things like that, so that I won't have as much of a burden when traveling. And yeah, just continuing in my career path. I've always wanted to just go far in my career and move forward. I went to school for 6 years and I nearly killed myself twice to get these degrees. So I really want to use my skills, and I love working here. I love what we do. I think it's so great that I, as a patient, can help other patients in my job. It's actually one of my dreams. When I was an undergraduate student at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, I was the Social Issues Commission chair of the disability publication for 2 years. And that's when I really found my passion for raising and elevating the voices of chronically ill and disabled people. So I just want to continue with that work in advocacy and other areas of stuff like that. And then, I also haven't been on a date in 4 years, so I would like to start dating. That would be nice. I'm healthier now, so I feel able to give myself to another person. So that's also on my radar.
Oh my gosh, you're so amazing. You're making me cry. That's
Don't
those
cry.
are wonderful. No, they're happy. Those are wonderful hopes and dreams. And I think I'm a good boss, so I'm going to work on the boyfriend. I got that down over here.
Please do.
I'm going to work. I think I know a safe place you can go on a vacation. So I'm making a list. But those are beautiful things, and those are things that everybody deserves. And we've all been through so much this year. Everybody out there, we've been through so much this year, and I think everybody deserves that happiness and joy and inner peace. And I can tell you that not only are you an amazing human person, young woman, but you are terrific at your job. Your boss, John Irvine, sent me an email the other day bragging about all the editors and how just amazing you guys are, just crushing it. So you are doing so well in your career, and I know you have a very, very bright future, Rachel. So thank you today for sharing a light on cystic fibrosis. Now let's tell everybody what else is happening in October, okay? So here we go, Rachel. I bet October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Yes.
And specifically on October 13th, guys, it is metastatic breast cancer. So MBC. And Rachel, you probably remember a few months back, we had the baddies on, our great breast cancer ladies. So shout out to you gals. This is MBC specific, and I want to say that Medivivor and More Fight More is doing a really cool awareness campaign called Light Up MBC. You can go to the Medivivor Facebook page, and you're going to see landmarks all over the world lit up next Tuesday on October 13th. They'll be lit up green, pink, and teal. That's MBC's colors, literally all over the world. 115 beautiful buildings. So that is very cool. So if any of you want to check that out, do. And it's really important that to learn more about cystic fibrosis, you go to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. It is an absolutely great organization. So check it out, read up, donate. Hey, even $5, everything helps. And, during this time, you can see the impact that COVID has had. The financial burden is going to, I think, even be greater in 2021 as the hangover of COVID is there. So philanthropy is going to be so important. Donate your time and donate whatever money you can to the causes that are near and dear to you, because they really do go to helping people. And I can tell you, in Rachel's case, cystic fibrosis is one of the conditions that the foundations actually helped fund. Yes, you go ahead, you tell.
Yeah, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation puts a ton of money directly into CF research and development for new treatments and therapies every day. And there are walks, there are fundraisers, there's merch, there are opportunities, even if you just want to help someone else on a team, like sign up and walk, and then you raise money that way. Endless possibilities to help directly impact people with CF.
Okay, I got one question here, last minute one. Hey, Amy wants to know, how do you manage CF emergencies?
In emergencies.
Oh, in emergencies, like if there's a hurricane or, yeah.
Well, I kind of have a go bag packed with the most essential medications. Obviously, it can't include the ones that need to be kept in the fridge and things like that, but I always try to have at least a month's worth of medications on hand. And yeah, just being in direct contact with your CF team and your primary care physician, if that's your first point of contact. And yeah, just kind of being aware of what's going on. Don't wait until a storm is on top of you before having your medications and having a stockpile. You might actually need to leave preemptively before a hurricane hits, unlike someone who's healthy. And if they lose power, they're not going to be impacted. I can't be here if there's no power because I have to have oxygen and BiPAP overnight, right?
Yeah.
So I would have to leave before that happens. Just being aware of your surroundings, and I think planning is really essential.
Yeah, I think this is one of the conditions where they say, the management of your condition, it really means the management of your condition. I mean, it's something that every day. Yeah, it is. It is a full-time job. I mean, that's the sense that I'm getting from you. So, wow, that's great. Good question, Amy. And we have another one. Where do you want to go? What's a travel bucket list place for you?
Oh, travel bucket list? I would love to take the train across Canada to the West Coast, because I have never been to West Coast Canada. I've always stayed, Eastern Maritimes, because that's where my family lives. And I've always wanted to take a train ride somewhere amazing, kind of live right around the Orient Express.
Yeah, that sounds like a great vacation. Well, again, you are a real inspiration, Rachel, and I know we are lucky that you are part of our family. Thank you. And thanks for all that you do. Thanks for raising awareness today about cystic fibrosis, and tell your mom and dad for me they have one hell of a daughter, okay?
I will. Thanks so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And everybody, if you want to potentially be an ambassador or be a guest on this show, go to patientambassador.com and pop in your information, and we will see what we can do. And so with that, I'm going to say enjoy the fall air, the crisp, pretty leaves, and do good out there. Stay healthy. And remember, if you have not been motivated to wear a mask and wash your hands, or anybody in your family hasn't been able to, I want you to think about people like Rachel and people like me. We're counting on you as we go into another, winter season with COVID, still erupting everywhere. Please, please, please help us stay healthy and manage through this pandemic. So until next time I'm with you, so 2 weeks from today, and I'll be live again. So get your questions ready. This is Brenda and Rachel, and we're wishing you the best of health.